Adopting a pet is a big responsibility, and sometimes it can even be a huge risk. Every year, thousands of animals are adopted or sold somewhere in the big cities, but a considerable number ends up on the streets, at the mercy of the weather and the hustle and bustle of the metropolises. Although shelters try to find homes for these potential pets, many people also rescue these four-legged friends and take them home, not knowing that sometimes this generous action can turn into a real nightmare. Would you like to find out what it's all about? Then join us and discover the story of a family that adopted something very cute that ended up being a creepy creature. Jenny Nixon was a woman who had known no other city than Boston, and no other harbor than the one across the street from where she worked. That was her favorite place. On the dock every evening when the sunset came, the colors of the sky mingled with the waters of the harbor. And with that beautiful view, she would go home. She was, in a word, happy. She had been working in that factory for nearly 7 years. She knew it from one end to the other, but that afternoon in 1995, when Jenny was leaving work with a group of friends, she came across something she had never seen before. That Friday afternoon, the women had a very specific plan. They would each go home, shower, put on makeup, and then meet at a nightclub where there was a party that promised to be great fun. However, as they were leaving work, a plaintive sound caught Jenny's attention. It was a sad, pained cry, an animal cry. Jenny immediately followed the sound. Her friends, puzzled, also went after her until they found her in an alley behind the factory. There, in the dark, a tiny bright white puppy lay abandoned, probably separated from its mother at birth or far from the family that had adopted it. Such a scene was not unusual. Every day all kinds of animals were abandoned by their owners in the dock. But in most cases they were either full-grown dogs, capable of at least surviving on the streets of Boston, or cats with sharp claws ready to attack. But that little creature seemed so frail and weak. It was only a couple of weeks old, and it was certain that leaving it to its fate at that moment would lead to a fateful end. The group of friends was immediately moved, and almost without realizing it, the party and plans were pushed into the background. They bought food, blankets, water, and a small house to protect the puppy. They left it well supplied with everything it needed and left. The next morning, Jenny got up early. She had not gone to the party. On the contrary, she stayed up all night thinking about that white puppy that she felt so sorry for. Surely because of this feeling, she went to the place again and discovered that it was perfectly well, healthy, and most importantly, safe from danger. From then on, Jenny began to visit it every day, as did the rest of her friends. She grew fond of the puppy, and after a week, when winter was threatening to approach the dock, she decided she was ready to have a pet. That same night, she took it home. She gave it a bath, weighed it, and fed it. The creature weighed 20 pounds and was already of considerable size despite being a puppy. It seemed to be growing in a hurry, but that didn't bother her too much. She would have a good guard dog, although she didn't know the breed yet. As she watched him eat, she felt hungry, so she went to the kitchen and prepared a hamburger. The meat was juicy and resonated as it seared in the pan. But halfway through, Jenny remembered she didn't have tomatoes or lettuce. She cursed her luck, but remembered that her neighbor was someone very nice. So she opened the door and, perhaps out of the habit of not having a pet, left it open. She would never have imagined that such an oversight would generate the greatest horror of her life. Jenny's neighbor let her in without completely closing the door. As she entered the house, she petted her neighbor's cat and followed her into the kitchen. The woman started talking about the weather and 1,000 things that kept Jenny from leaving. After 10 minutes, she was finally able to escape the conversation, but in doing so, something had changed. The first feeling of dread Jenny experienced was seeing her neighbor's door half open. Her friend's cat could have escaped because of her. She immediately ran into the hallway, hoping to find it, but what she saw in the corridor chilled her blood. The hallway floor was littered with a strange brown and dark red stain that crawled past her door. Jenny followed it, terrified. What did it all mean? Who was responsible? Was there a killer in the building? Her heart was pounding. The trail ended at a junction towards the stairs. She didn't know whether she would go on or return home, But in a burst of courage, she turned into the hallway and stifled a scream at the sight of the chilling scene. There, near the stairs, was her puppy, but it was no longer as adorable as she remembered. It was covered in red and brown stains, its teeth were sharp and numerous. The mouth was covered with blood, and the eyes had a flash of unbridled rage as it shredded the bones of the cat, which was lying lifeless under the puppy. Jenny's first reaction was to hide the crime. She felt responsible and immediately returned home, fetching cleaning supplies, and left the hallway perfectly tidy. She then took the pet carrier she kept in her living room and put the alleged puppy in it. Minutes later, Jenny was driving down the main avenue looking for a veterinary center that was open at that hour. She had a hard time finding it, but she did. While waiting at the reception desk, Jenny paced back and forth, biting her nails, remembering the poor cat being shredded by what was supposed to be a puppy but actually looked like a demon. Jenny was convinced that it wasn't a dog, and if it was a danger to everyone. After 30 minutes, Jenny was desperate. What was taking so long if it was just a routine check? It shouldn't be that hard, but she had to sit and wait another 30 minutes until the vet came out with a look of absolute horror to give her the news. Jenny thought she had adopted an albino puppy. The vet thought the same thing when she handed him over. But on the way out, she told her something Jenny hadn't expected. This was not a dog or any animal she knew. It was a 20-pound white Cambodian rat, very common in Asia, and it had come to Boston to meet its owner and best friend, Jenny Nixon. Shortly after this story, the next time you see an animal on the street, you will be very careful to see if it's actually a dog, a cat, or some animal you have never seen in your life. But don't worry, these events are rare. Adopting animals will never be a mistake unless you are interested in some of the most terrible creatures on the planet or some of the most lethal species. Would you like to know them? Get ready to discover their mysteries by checking out the following videos.